4 years ago, I sat with Yamo Morigbe on Founders Connect. Bamo was barely a year old then. She told me that she hadn't planned to be a founder at all. In fact, it started from frustration, her wanting to invest in Apple or Amazon, and then realizing that as a Nigerian, living in Nigeria, it just wasn't possible because the systems weren't built for us. And the few options that existed were slow, expensive, and out of reach. That first conversation with Yama was about possibilities. Two young founders trying to open doors that had never been closed. Hey folks, you're welcome to another episode of the Founders Connect, where I interview leading entrepreneurs of leading tech startups. But in this episode, we have a very, very special person. Her name is Yamo Omorigbe.
Yeah, because Yamo Omorigbe.
Okay, Omorigbe of Invest Bambo. And she's here to talk to us about her entrepreneurship journey so far. Hi, Yamo.
Was working, like I mentioned, this private equity company, and started learning more about finance, wanted to start investing. So I did some, I started saving. And then I started saving. I was like, I'd probably start investing so the money can start growing. So I started doing like mutual funds, Nigerian mutual funds in Naira. And then I was like, it'll be fun to start investing more in dollars, making dollar investments. Sounded cool at the time. But then it was just hard. The only thing I could think of was wanting to buy US stocks of like companies we knew. I wasn't even trying to be dramatic or just Apple, Amazon, very basic.
Today, we pick up the story from there to see how far the journey has come and how it's changing the way Africans think about money and ownership.
Investing was a complex, out-of-reach topic, which it typically is. Like, finance is very complex for a lot of people. And many Africans just have a very distant relationship with money. When they think about their money, it's very fearful, it's very out of touch, and even figuring out how to grow it. And for many, many Africans, access to the global capital markets, for example, was something that was out of reach.
So I literally couldn't invest. So I wanted to invest. I had started investing. I wanted to buy US stocks, and there just was no way. Like, if you're a Nigerian with just Nigerian KYC, there just wasn't any way to get onboarded. Or if you were able to get onboarded, so access for like wealthy individuals was via private banks or whatever. But even that access wasn't direct access, and it was very slow to get on board, and it was expensive. It was more money than I had at the time.
I think not just me, myself, my co-founder, a bunch of friends also in our network, were young professionals working in Nigeria, and we wanted to invest in the US stock market, for example, and that was just not possible. As a Nigerian, I remember calling up an asset manager to say, hey, I want to buy US stocks, and I was told at the time that the person that handled this was not available, and the typical not on sit at the moment, and I had to check back in 3 weeks. And also, by the way, I needed very high minimums. I needed to have a lot of money to be able to access it, and it was just something that didn't make sense. But now we have made it such that as a Nigerian, as an African, Ghanaian, South African, with as little as $1, you can access the US stock market. You can download Bamboo in less than 2 minutes, open a brokerage account, and you can trade the entire US stock market, for example. And that's something that previously was impossible.
Bambo did not come out of theory. It came out of lived frustration. Richmond had tried and failed to invest in US stocks from Nigeria. Yamo had felt the same. Neither of them set out to build a company, but some problems won't let you look away. And so, in 2019, they started building the rails, infrastructure that would let Africans own pieces of the world's biggest companies. The early days were not just about regulation or technology. It was also about trust. Convincing people in a low-trust society to deposit their money in a new app. Answering questions like, if I give you my BVN, will you take my money? It was hard. But they also knew that if they pulled it off, it wouldn't just be an app. It would reset how financial access works for millions of Africans.
I studied chemical engineering in uni, but I very quickly realized and knew that I didn't want to be a chemical engineer. So I was trying different things. And when I moved back to Nigeria, I was listening to a podcast or a YouTube video, something about figuring out what you want to do with your life. And I remember at the time the video said, look for something that annoys you and work at fixing that. So I was like, oh, okay. And I was at home and I was thinking, okay, I think I want to live in Nigeria. I was coming back to do NYSC shop. And it was what's in Nigeria annoys me. I hate the fact that there's no light. So I was like, okay, I'm going to want to work in power. When I was doing NYSC, when they were posting, I did NYSC in Abuja and I got posted to the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing. And while doing that, I realized, okay, I like this infrastructure thing. The projects are cool. It's interesting, but no to the government part, not trying to do this. And so I started looking for other jobs, and as luck, fate, God would have it, I got a job at African Infrastructure Investment Managers, and they're essentially an infrastructure private equity.
I grew up as a kid in Nigeria and that left, when I was pretty young to study. I studied engineering in London, moved back to Nigeria after university. And a lot of my experience, building products and building technology started out as a student in the university. I was working as a student at a tech company. I remember in London in Euston Road, and moving back was really to come and contribute to the ecosystem here, to solve problems that really mattered for Nigerians, for Africans.
So I knew nothing about finance, and so I had to learn about finance. And in learning about finance, I started doing my CFA. And while doing the CFA, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Let me practice on what I'm learning now. I now started investing, bought mutual funds, bought a few Nigerian stocks. And I was like, okay, I want to invest in the US stock market. And there just wasn't any way to do that. I tried a couple of brokers internationally. They weren't onboarding Nigerians. So you needed a US social security number or, a UK tax ID number, something like that anyway. If you were Nigerian, nothing for you.
And coming back and really looking at what's happening in financial ecosystem in Nigeria and figuring out how can we make Africans richer? What can we do? What kind of problems can we solve? And all of that leading into meeting my co-founder, Yamo, for example, and finding out that, we had the same problem, helping Africans access the US stock market.
At the same time, I was speaking to my co-founder, Richmond, about it, and he had a similar problem, but I had a job, I was working in a PE firm, I was not trying to become a founder. Actually, the thing I knew I didn't want to be is an entrepreneur, actually. And so my energy was very much, you guys should fix it, let me know how it goes. I would love to be your first user. And we sort of just kept in touch. We're talking about it, shown different things. And one day he was like, do I want to be his co-founder? And the opportunity came, and I'm relatively impulsive, like I always say. And so here we are, almost 6 years later.
So why Bamboo? I have been involved in building digital products for a while. I think the very first company I worked was a venture builder, essentially a place where you come into and there were lots of startups that were incubating at the time. Interestingly, the founder of Bamboo had worked with me in that company, but then moved on, and then I went to lead another business for that entity as well. Eventually, we sort of caught up again. I think Bamboo was fundraising at the time because he used to be responsible for products, and he needed someone to sort of take that and own it. That's how I landed at Bamboo, but especially because I was very sold on the mission of the business and the vision of it.
So about 6 years ago, I was working for a company called Helium Health. Richmond was the chief of staff for Helium Health, and he was working on this project, Bamboo. And the team at Helium was really supportive of what he was trying to do. And he reached out to me. They had marketing considerations. They were thinking about go-to-market, and he sort of wanted my inputs. Wanting my inputs turned into taking a couple of meetings with marketing agencies. Did that about for 6 months, and then I was like, you know what, you've been doing this for about 6 months. How about we just make it official and give you a contract? So I like to say I was the first staff, even though on paper I was the second one that was handed the contract. But
my background is in finance. I started my career in Access Bank, with Access Bank for about 4 years. And then I moved to FSDH Merchant Bank, and in both banks I worked in treasury operations in both banks, and from there then I moved to Bamboo. I joined Bamboo because in 2019 then it was an interesting space to work in.
Fintechs were basically just springing up as at the time, and I saw fintech as where the future lies in terms of like it being quite interesting to work in, where I think like the growth trajectory could potentially come from. And I wanted to tap into it. I looked up to people like GB in Flutterwave as at the time and what he was doing with Flutterwave. And when the Bamboo opportunity came, I saw it as an opportunity to work in this space, and I dived it.
I think one of the things that drew me to Bamboo personally at the time was the idea was fascinating. I'm not, I call myself like mathematically challenged. Investing was definitely not something I saw. Finance was not something I saw in my future. But I think it started as a personal challenge to say if I was working in marketing at an investment firm, I would have to learn about investing and finance. So for me, my initial draw towards Bamboo was a more personal goal. It's like I think I want to learn how to like invest in, at the time, like treasury bills, which Bamboo didn't have for like, it's better than where I was at the time. So that was my initial draw to Bamboo.
I'm trying to remember. So funny enough, I actually remember the first conversation where it was serious, like, oh, I want you to come and like join the team. It was we went to this place in Lekki, the Junction. We just sat down, we're talking, and we first of all just like talked about the products and like dissected it. He sent me the current version. I came and like I gave him like feedback, like very detailed feedback, which in hindsight, I can just imagine thinking like, okay, like, I mean, I sent it to you, just say whether it's good or not. I really gave it page by page feedback. And then we're talking about it. And, if you know Richmond, he's very, very like grandiose and just like big and larger than life. And, like one of our staff jokes, as he said, that who Richmond can't inspire does not exist. So he's just that kind of person. And so he just started telling me on the vision and what we're trying to build and what we're doing. And I remember then I'm just talking about, when we launch, we're going to do this or we're going to do that, blah, blah, blah. And in hindsight, it's so crazy because we did not have money for any of these things. But it worked out. I think what really sold me then, what was very, very clear, even at that early stage, was that the vision was very, very clear. Like Richmond has a very, very clear idea and very, very clear in his mind what we're trying to do and what he's trying to build. And beyond just building, how much he wants to like impact people and help people. So even at that early stage while we're building Bamboo, for us, a lot of the dream was that, I'm imagining it's like if everybody in Nigeria, they can invest, they can grow their wealth. We're not just hearing about companies, they're investing, they're making money from the companies. So that vision has always been there. And that like passion has always been there. And I think we also just aligned around like values. So we both wanted to build the same kind of company.
I was a young professional working in Nigeria at the time with some savings that I wanted to invest. I wanted at the time to just invest in a way that I could earn real returns. I could earn returns that like were above inflation, and I couldn't. Where I was at the time was just trying to understand why. Like, why couldn't I find returns that meant that I wouldn't lose money, right? Because if you had inflation, I think at the time was about 15%, and banks are returning about 3%, 4% on a savings account. It didn't make sense, right? You're losing money. And I wanted to figure out, how. And I think I tried to dabble in the Nigerian stock market at the time, but couldn't really get what I was looking for. And I just wanted to access, the US stock market. Like, how do I, why can't I access it? Discussing with, Yamu, for example, and other friends that we had in our network, it was like, oh wow, this is a real thing that Nigerians can't, like you couldn't. And just going down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out why, asking the question why can't we do it, right? Is there a legal reason? Is it a technological reason? Just led us into that, that problem solving mode of, okay, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it, and we decided to.
Oh no, right. So before we launched the Bamboo app, there was really no other app where retail participants can buy foreign stocks, global stocks in Nigeria. It was really a very difficult thing to do. Before now, you really would need to probably call your account officer in the bank, and the bank will probably contact another bank before you get to be able to buy foreign stocks. It wasn't something that was very common. So it was this gap that we sought to fill. And in filling this gap, we kind of basically just put out some sort of wait list out there just to even gauge the market, whether there is real appetite for it. And in doing that, we had a very long wait list of people basically just waiting for us to launch. So from the day we launched and we announced that, hey, we've launched this particular product out there, people started trooping in. And from day one, right, like we started to get hundreds of persons coming in trying to use the apps.
I remember when we launched, the day we launched, everybody was working customer support. I mean, like, there was nobody doing marketing, there was nobody doing product. Not necessarily that those people didn't exist, but I think the initial response took us by surprise, and it was brand new. So a lot of the customer feedback was like, what is this? What does it do? How can I use it? What is this stock? So we had like a customer support person on the team, but like everybody ended up that day just having to like work. It wasn't just that day, it was for about the week. The first week of Bamboo, everybody's job was customer support. There was nothing else to do but customer support. We just couldn't attend to customers quickly enough.
First investment, so yeah, that first day, I remember the first day we launched Bamboo. So we're actually in there. Sorry, in that office, we didn't have furniture yet. So we had just gotten the building. We had one chair, okay, that couch was there, and a few chairs, and we're all there. So all of us fit around the table this size. And we were just there, and then we launched, and then everybody was doing support. And it was just crazy that like all these people were signing up, and then they were depositing, and it was like, wow. And I remember the first time someone gave us $1 million, we're like, wow, like people are actually investing. And like for the first few months of Bamboo, I got like every deposit alert. So I would call Richmond sometimes, I'd just be like, wow, Richmond, people are really giving us money. People are really depositing their money, wow. I still do. And it's still exciting, like, it might feel a bit different, but I'm still excited when I meet people and they're like, oh, I use Bamboo, or I've heard about Bamboo. I'm so shocked. I'm still excited. It's thrilling, actually.
Bamboo's mission has always been simple: to help Africans build wealth from the ground up. Not just giving access to stocks, but also with tools, education, and confidence. Because once you change who can own, you also change who gets to shape the future. And as one of the users put it, say, I like money unapologetically, but what financial freedom fascinates me. Bamboo tapped into that hunger.
Once our people invest so they can live the lives they dream of. So our overall mission is helping Africans grow their wealth and giving them access to global investment options that allow them to do that safely and easily. So that's been extremely important for us.
Simply, it's helping Africans to live their dreams through investing. A dream is a picture of the future that you hope to achieve. And many times, people have financial dreams that feel out of reach. For us, we want to be that trusted financial partner that helps you achieve those dreams through investing. And so we provide the platform that makes this possible and gives you access that you ordinarily wouldn't have had. Access to both the local markets, the global markets in simple, frictionless ways. And then we provide the education and the insights that allow you actually make those decisions. And that's really something that we're very obsessed about.
So Bamboo's mission really is to give Africans access to investment options, both global and local investment options, allowing them to create wealth for themselves. But as a product team, I think the way we've sort of like localized that is more around, we've always told ourselves in the last few years that we want every investor on the African continent within the decade to be interfacing with our infrastructure. If you are investing on the continent, and it's the reason why, if you see the way our services are set up today, it's almost like we are enabling the competition. So there are other platforms today who then resell, like US trading services and brokerage services, but they are powered by Bamboo. So it aligned with our mission, because at the end of the day, your users get on your platform, they want to buy a stock, but it still ends up passing through Bamboo. So for us, from a very product and tech standpoint, that's the goal, is to ensure that whoever is investing on the African continent within the next decade is somehow interfacing with our infrastructure. It's a very audacious goal and mission that we have, but that's what we've been sort of like executing on, and that has really influenced how we've developed our product as well and how the team is positioned.
It's not just about money, it's about freedom, it's about security, it's about having agency, it's to be able to get stuff done. And when you know that you have something to achieve, maybe for your family, and you have the agency to do it, that's really a life worth living. And that's what we want to make possible for a lot of Africans. So it's not just having money, but it's having money that grows over time, and that growth allows you the agency to be able to really make your dreams come true.
Y Combinator. In 2020, Bamu got into YC. That was validation, but it was also pressure. COVID had just hit and nobody knew what tomorrow looked like. Y Combinator forced the team to move faster. Weekly metrics, constant experiments, nights calling users one by one just to understand their pain points deeply. At one point, the team joked that the people even realized that you could actually run out of marketing ideas. It was stressful, but he had wired the habit into the company to talk to their users, to obsess about their needs, and to build with them in mind.
Why did we apply? Because why not? Right? I think if you look at Y Combinator, there are people who applied and just have an idea, and there are people who applied and they just have a prototype. So for me, it was very much, there's nothing that stops you from applying, so really, why not? That was the stage in our business where we thought it could be most useful. As doing demo day, getting access to the investors could be most useful. Honestly, really just like, why not? If it was something we wanted to go for, something that we were interested in. So until you said it, I've never thought about the fact that maybe we should have waited to apply, or like it should have been like scary. I'm sure you can tell, or like it should have been scary to apply.
We were going to fundraise, and we knew that for fundraising, Y Combinator is very helpful. There's also my friends that had been to Y Combinator, and just the experience for shaping your business and helping you as a founder to really refine your business.
I got my first gray hair when I went to Y Combinator. It was not fun because I was also during COVID. First of all, just the pressure of COVID, like as a thing, because you have to rewind back to nobody knows what's happening. Nobody knows what this thing is. Are we going lockdown? You're hearing news in the US and like developed countries, tissue paper is finishing. What's going to happen in Nigeria? At that point we were not sure, like people what was going to happen. Like whether people just going to be dying. So that was pressure on its own. And then now you're like in this thing that you like worked really hard to get into, and maybe the idea we had subconsciously, or I had subconsciously, was Y Combinator is a school. They teach you. They teach your founders, right, things. There are metrics that they look at every week when you're in Y Combinator. So your numbers have to look a certain way while you're in Y Combinator. So there was pressure. There was a point where I felt like every week we had to come up with an entirely new marketing strategy and execute in that week. I remember one time talking to one of my colleagues, I was like, do people know that there's a point at which you can run out of ideas? Because like we're reaching that point. It was stressful, but I think it's one of those things you look back on as well, and like you grew a lot in that period.
We entered into YC quite early after we launched the app, and it was a very interesting process, because our founders were in San Francisco in YC, while the rest of us were in Lagos here, like doing the day-to-day job, but every day they get new learnings at YC. They basically pass it on to us, so say, hey, this is what we basically learned today. Why don't you do this like this, and why don't you do that like this, to basically get the business to grow aggressively.
So by the time we had our virtual interview, we were just launching. So we also realized that we had to show some amount of traction and growth. So when we had our real interview, or like our in-person interview in San Francisco, then we launched, and we were able to show like some traction and some growth and just tell the story. And it was very nerve-wracking because there were just so many companies there. The YC interview is like only 10 minutes, so you almost feel like, did I say the right thing? Did we get everything out? And so right after the interview, basically when I'm stressed, I sleep. So as soon as I go back to the apartment, I just went to sleep immediately. And like I would wake up, we check a little, we still hadn't gotten the email. I would just go back to sleep. So I remember we got our YC acceptance late. It was actually very late comparatively. So I was just lie down, half watching, I think it was Succession or something, and half asleep. And then Richmond just came in to the living room. I was sleeping on the couch. I was like, we got in! And it was just like, yay! And I guess at that point in time, it just felt like validation, like, yes, we've done it, this is good. And I think that was similar to what I was saying before when I was saying if startups were as hard as it was, I don't know if I'd have done it. Because at the time, it sort of felt like all we need to do is get into YC and then, everything is like smooth sailing. But obviously, as you know, COVID hit right after, and there was all that.
One thing that YC emphasizes is keeping the main thing, and the main thing is users, what they want. And if you keep that as the main thing for the business and you optimize or obsess around those problems that your customers have, then evidently and naturally what will happen is that you will delight the users, you will delight the customer. And that's something that we've done, and that's something that's helped us achieve product market fit.
Oh, talk to your users. Number one thing. It seems so obvious and it's so basic, but talk to your users. If you're not sure, ask your users. If you don't know, ask your users. Just talk to your users. So when we were at Y Combinator, Richmond and I were on San Francisco time, which is 8 hours difference from Lagos. We would literally just have a list of users who have deposited over a certain amount, and we just split it. And so we'd have Y Combinator all day or an evening, and when we don't, we'll just both be on the phone. I think we downloaded Reptel or whatever, and we'll just be calling people one after the other. How's it going? How was your experience? Even like post YC, post launch, like during like 2020, just call people. How are you? How's your experience? And like a big part of like the Bamboo experience today still remains someone calling users and talking and finding out what they want, because people know, and it's been very, very helpful.
It would have been easy to just stop at US stocks, but that would not have solved the real problem. Most Africans needed more. They need local investment. They need savings that beat actual inflation. Remember that in Nigeria, at some point, banks were offering 3 to 4% while inflation was at 15%. And so people were losing money just by saving. So Bamboo built Nigerian stocks, fixed returns, and many more features. By 2023, more than 1 in 5 new SCSE accounts in Nigeria were actually opened through Bamboo. And each product feature had the same goal: to make wealth building possible in the realities that Africans live in.
As at the time, right, US stocks was basically our flagship product. As at the time, the opportunity we saw was to offer US stocks, right, to Nigerians. And it wasn't just a thing where we wanted to offer US stocks, we wanted to offer global asset classes. We wanted Nigerians to be able to access asset classes that people in America would readily access without like stress, right? So it was democratizing investments. That was really the goal, right? And not necessarily just putting up any asset class on the app. So the choice to go with the US stock market is one that is also born out of which market is really the biggest in the world, right? The US stock exchange is the biggest in the world, the one with the most upside, right? Like where stocks can basically run 1,000% and stuff, right? And like where you get the most value. And we wanted to give Nigerians access to that sort of ability to build wealth in a great way. And I guess that kind of informed the need to offer the US stock market as our flagship product.
I think at the time, the first thing we needed to answer from a compliance standpoint was a regulation that said that no African or Nigerian, for example, can own foreign securities? And the answer was no. As a Nigerian, you can't own foreign securities. And the question was why? Why couldn't you? And it was an access, it was a technology problem. And so we solved that. But as we grew and went along, one thing that became very evident was that we needed to be locally licensed in Nigeria. And we got the license. We approached the regulators and we got the license, which I think is important for us in any market that we get into. We want to always have a great relationship with regulators. And so what we do is we engage regulators, explain to them our business, and acquire licenses or approvals that we need to be able to operate in every market. Especially now, for example, in Nigeria, where we now serve Nigerian markets pretty actively. So it's important, I think, for us that we do so.
One of the regulatory hurdles that we faced was in the process of acquiring our US broker-dealer license. The entire process was stressful. It was a long process. It was convoluted. It was everything you can think of. And that's because our product is innovative. It's also designed to be seamless and fast for our users, right? And the regulators just didn't immediately understand how the product worked. So we had a lot of back and forth. You know, them coming with first round of questions, second round of questions, third round of questions, up to I'm sure almost 20 rounds of questions be asked. And that took like a long time. We had to break down our process into bits, explaining everything, you know, to make them understand. And to also, we basically had to ensure that we design our process in a way that also fits their compliance requirements and their standards. So yeah, we had to translate that innovation into compliance language that they would understand, and we were able to scale through, and we obtained our license.
If you look at our deck as at when we launched in 2019, it basically carried US and Nigerian stocks, right? So it's something that has been in the works for a very long period of time for us. We didn't want to, again, like I said, the goal was to democratize investments, right? So the goal was not just to offer US stocks, but was to also offer Nigerian stocks and other asset classes. And we've basically been working on it for a bit, but we wanted to get it right. We didn't just want to put up any asset class on the app. We didn't just want to put the Nigerian stocks on the app the way it is every other place, where users would basically struggle to access it with some of the other problems that are inherent in the market. So we wanted to solve some of those problems. Some of the things that we wanted to do that was quite important to us was we wanted users to be able to open accounts quickly, right? To get their CSCS account within hours, same day, right? That is something that we felt was very important. So we had lots of conversations with partners with the CSCS. They were very helpful. The NGX was very helpful, and we had all of this conversation, and these were things that were very important to us to solve. And we wanted to make it easy for people to access the market in a way that with 1, 2, 3 click, right, they can access the market, buy the stocks that they need to buy, and keep it moving.
On the investment side, we have different regulatory requirements. One of it is to ensure that you properly identify and verify your users, ensure that you monitor transactions, ensure you do your reporting, you know, so we have all of that. You have to build processes that align with those regulatory expectations. So for example, if you're going to onboard on our platform, we request certain information, and the reason why requesting is not just to keep it in our backyard or just to store it in our system. We're looking to ensure that we meet regulatory requirements. So if we're asking for your name, if we're asking for your proof of identity, it's because we're trying to verify your identity and satisfy the regulatory requirements, right? Other than we obviously want to know you. Yeah, so other things that we do, transaction monitoring, that's also a regulatory obligation. Reporting, that's also a regulatory obligation. So we just ensure that we have processes that we implement and we follow, basically.
So I think I always say that a big part of what we do, like, yes, we're a brokerage company, but we're also very much an education company. So education is a massive part of what we do. We have to educate our users about stocks and investing, etc. But also in launching and doing something new in this market, we also have to educate like the regulators and help them understand exactly what we're doing, and also get them comfortable around the work that we're doing and how it works. And because regulators need to understand something properly to also properly regulate it. So we had to spend a lot of time when we launched just helping them understand what we're doing, understand what's going on, how we do it, how money moves, etc., which all led in the culmination of getting the sub-broker license from SEC and also abroad, right? We also had to work a lot with regulators and legal and compliance, even with our executing broker, with other places to get people comfortable around Nigeria and like the Nigeria risk. And we'd explain, okay, this is how the BVN worked. and this is why it's a valid form of KYC, and just to everybody across the world. So now we have a US broker license. I don't know if that's come up, but we have a US broker license, and even getting a US broker license, that entire process and educating process, this is how it works, this is how we move money, because obviously globally people hear Nigeria and they're like, voila. So we have to explain all of that. So yeah, I think just generally with compliance, regulators, KYC, education, and just being, I think for us was helpful because it also meant that we also had to deeply understand what we're doing and like deeply understand our processes and really make sure that all of our processes fits was there exactly.
Behind every product is a team. Before Bamboo even launched, the founders wrote down the culture that they wanted. Years later, people in the company still describe it the same way, and that's very rare. There's no monopoly on ideas. Even junior staff members can question leadership at all hands. Ownership and accountability are also expected. There's also trust. One time, a contractor pulled out suddenly, and Richmond turned to the new head of engineering and simply said, "I trust you. You'll handle it." That's their culture and practice. When a team believes in what they're building, you can really feel it in the product.
My typical work day: open laptop, go on Slack to treat whatever tasks that we have for the previous day, respond to customers' inquiries, complaints via our mailbox. Then I typically would work with cross-functional teams, the engineering team, legal team, customer support, all of that, just to find ways to like improve our processes, or if we're working on like a new product, just to ensure compliance alignment.
So for me, it starts off with stand-ups. Because of my role, I sit between design and product, right? So I have stand-ups for those two teams, and from stand-up, I jump into work. Depending on the season we are and what we're working on, we may have more meetings during that week than typically we would do. But typically starts off with very short stand-ups, syncing with the teams, getting everyone's updates, and then proceeding to execute.
Before Bamboo, I worked at a bank, and before that I worked at a law firm, and I really, really wanted to get into the tech world. It was like an interest of mine, like the area of law I wanted to specialize in was tech. So I started looking at companies to apply for, and Bamboo was one of the companies that stood out for me just because of the mission they had, which is to make investing easier for Africans like me. So yeah, I think that was one of the things that drew me to the company. Like I believed in what they were doing.
I think one of my favorite thing about the Bamboo's culture is really that thing that nobody has monopoly of ideas. Nobody has monopoly on the best strategic direction. If you can talk to me about an idea that you have and show me how it makes us money, how it improves the quality our users have, I'm inclined to go with it. And I think it's something that's very difficult to find in our society, because our societies, you can't question up questions down. You can't say, I'm not sure why we're doing that. We have all hands every month where people will like ask Richmond or Yamo and any member of management, well, I don't understand why we're doing ABC. And like the expectation is that they will have to answer, and they do. And so I really like that about the culture.
The thing that is good might also be the thing that's right. Well, we mostly work remotely, so and the typical work day would be different for different persons, right? My typical work day involves a lot of meetings, meeting with my teams, and also external meetings, and also a lot of conversations as to looking for solutions based on various problems that have arisen over time. And yeah, there are a lot, right? But when you think about it, because we work remotely, we expect that everybody should be self-motivated, get off their bed on a daily basis and do what needs to be done. And as managers also, we basically try to ensure that like our people are on the job on a daily basis and getting the job done. But from a cultural perspective, Bamboo is a company that really we trust our staff to do what needs to be done. We basically are a company of a lot of young people, and because we have a lot of young people, we also take growth into cognizance. Like we take education very seriously, like trying to ensure that our people grow and develop adequately?
I think we have a great culture at Bamboo, to be honest. We bring in people that we trust. So what that means is there's a lot of self-management that is expected. So nobody's really going to micromanage you because we expect that we've hired the right person and they understand what needs to be done and they know what mission we have and how their job, their day-to-day is relevant to the actualization of that. So I see that at play, like a lot here at Bamboo, where individual contributors are allowed to craft their vision based on how it supports the overall objective of the business. Then I think that we have a very respectful culture at Bamboo as well. Just talking about like me to my colleagues, to the people that I manage, is very respectful. It's one way people are allowed to also like speak up. And I think we are true to ourselves. That's something else that I know for a fact, that we're true to ourselves at Bamboo. What I mean is, we hear what happens outside. There are some businesses for which there's a lot of internal chaos. There's what you now call financial engineering, whatever. Do you understand? Like people want to paint a picture of maybe just the operational status of the business being healthier than it actually is. That's not the case with Bamboo. So we are very true to ourselves. What we report to ourselves internally is the same thing that we put out there to investors.
So it hasn't felt like 4 years, to be honest, because one is adventurous. Something everyone at Bamboo will tell you is we're working on new things almost every time. We're optimizing, we're improving, we're getting things, making things better. So it hasn't felt like 4 years. It feels more like, 4 months, we just came in and here we are. But it's been wonderful working with amazing set of smart people, caring people, people that actually value users and value the impact that we aim to achieve and bring to users. So it's really been an interesting journey.
Bamboo is a guy that always delivers. He always listens. Whatever you say, he takes it into cognizance. Like, if you need something, Bamboo will get it done. We're always there 24/7 to listen to your problems, whatever it is. So if you want to talk, please come to us.
Bamboo is like a sugar daddy, but with a lot of value being added to you, more than just the money part, of course.
So I remember a situation that happened in 2021 where I had just joined the business. We used to contract out a company to handle the engineering for Bamboo. And when I joined, we decided that it was time for us to bring all of that in-house because we saw the limitations and the challenges and how it was sort of like impeding the velocity of the team. And so what happened was that the contracting team just decided that they were going to pull the plug. So they sent an email and said, you know what? In just a couple of weeks, do you understand? Like, we'll no longer work for you, all of that stuff. That did not give us enough room to plan, enough room for replacement, enough room for proper transitioning. So it was like a real big problem. And I remember the founder, the CEO, he came to visit. I had just joined the business, just maybe like a month or so. And then we sat in my house and we're talking. And then I said, you don't look very disturbed that, what just happened, like with this guy saying that they are leaving. And he said, no, I trust you, you handle it. So that goes back to the self-management. It's where there's a lot of trust in the leadership to be able to do what is right and be able to deliver the expected results.
I had the opportunity of working on the Naira stocks, which is on the platform today. I had the opportunity of working on that product. And I think one proud moment we had was last year, Q3 of last year, where the data came out that about over 22% of all new accounts that were created on the Nigerian stock exchange market came through Bamboo. That was a very proud moment for me as an individual and also for the company.
The hardest thing about working in Bamboo, I would say, is that we move fast. We move really fast. We just launched a product today, and tomorrow we're already talking about, okay, so what are the features we need to add? Okay, what country we're looking to expand, another market, another offering, another day. Like, what? It is a lot.
One of the hardest lessons I have learned is that you can't skip, and speaking specifically for my role, you can't skip the design process. In a bid to save time, sometimes people just jump right into finalizing the design, the pixels and everything, flashy, and they skip the process of research, speaking to customers, analyzing and iterating. And I've learned that I learned that from experience that you can't skip the process. So that's one of the lessons I've learned.
My favorite people in Bamboo, I really, surprisingly enough, enjoy working with the guys in finance, which is interesting. The guys in legal, platform ops, AB. I consider AB a really close friend. I really enjoy working with my teammates. And I also like my bosses. Genuinely, I do. So I think there are more people that I like that I don't, to be honest. Because I feel like we have a very good and solid team.
Obviously, I love Richmond. I love the way he thinks. Richmond is very enthusiastic and optimistic about possibilities. If you listen to Richmond, you wouldn't know when you're already on track of what he's saying. Like, he's very passionate about what he believes in, and that was one of the things that also convinced me to work with Bamboo, because he was the final person that interviewed me, and I really enjoyed that conversation that day. I still remember it till date, and this was about 4 years ago.
I guess what you actually just said, like, I'm very proud of the fact that we built the company we wanted to build. So when Bamboo first started, Richmond and I sat down and we wrote down a culture document, and we're like, okay, this is what Bamboo, we want the company to look like. This was before we launched, actually. This is what we want the company to look like. And it's so interesting and it's amazing actually to see that now that is what the company looks like. Like, we're 6 years down the line, it hasn't devolved. We still communicate clearly. We still have a culture of ownership. We still have a culture of accountability. People are still helpful. People still collaborate. I think definitely that we've actually built it. And what it's lovely to see is, I guess, stuff like this, seeing people. Because it's one thing for me as the founder to say this is the company culture, but it's great to see, like, without prompting, people from various levels of the organization also describe the company in this way. And hopefully, down the line, it remains the same or gets even better.
Access alone doesn't make people invest. Confidence does, especially in a low trust cost society like Nigeria. And that's why Bamboo has always invested heavily in education. Their first courses were 90-second explainers, later masterclasses that stretch 4 or 5 hours. The message has always been the same. This is yours. You can understand it, you can use it, you can grow with it. Because ownership is just about belief as it is about access. And people need to know and believe in it.
Bamboo's approach to marketing is very much based on a couple of things. In no particular order. Number one, don't lose money. In the sense, if you're going to do it's very open, I have to say. Like, there's no idea that's stupid, fundamentally. But what's the ROI? And the ROI isn't always money. Sometimes it's intangibles. But like, there's a question Richmond always asks, what does success look like? We first have to answer that question. And then we have to evaluate whether what success looks like is what the investment we're about to make. And I think of the investment very much in terms of time and capital, right? The second is try pretty much everything. Try stuff that scales. Try stuff that doesn't scale. Try stuff that sounds funny. Try stuff that doesn't sound funny. Try everything. See what works. See what doesn't work. Try and be creative. Try and be informative. Try and stay ahead of the curve. Would ideally like to do stuff before that people start doing it, because once everybody else starts doing it, and I don't even mean a Bamboo thing, the philosophy of marketing is something works, everybody does it, it stops working. So you ideally try to be like the early adopters of either a new technology or a new system or a new format. Try and be informative to the users. Try and go deeper than being informative. Try and be genuinely insightful. There is an overabundance of information. Insight is missing. Try and catch people's attention. All these different things are sort of what put together the essential essence of how we approach marketing. When we think about the mental infrastructure deficits that exist between the product that we sell and the users, you have to bridge that gap, and that's a lot of education. But the thing about education is you have to present it in different ways, because even if you create an actual school, there are people that fundamentally don't like school and or don't do well in school. So you need to be all things to all people, if you will. So sometimes you try and approach it from an entertainment standpoint. Sometimes you try and approach it from a more structured, professional standpoint. But I think it's a very critical part of our strategy. I remember when we wanted to do our very first stock market course, we basically got Yamo, sat Yamo in front of a background, and they were like, this is what we're going to do. Obviously, we had written script, but one thing that was important to me at the time was there should be no script, no video that's longer than 2 minutes. So what is a stock in 90 seconds or less? What is the stock market? 90 seconds or less. How do you invest? 90 seconds or less. And you want to capture the essence of it. And we did that, and people loved it. People really loved it. And more feedback came that there are areas our course doesn't cover, the more complex areas, or more intermediate areas. And so you said, let's do a second one. I wanted to try something different. And so we worked with 2 public personalities. We tried to keep the essence of that true. So one of them, Fowles. When we started working with Fowles, the very first thing Fowles said was he wanted to come to the office, which he did. And we had a 3-hour session where we were teaching Fowles how to invest. There's no recording of this because it wasn't recording. Like, he came to the office. One thing that struck me about that is he didn't pick up his phone for 3 hours. He was taking notes. And so when we did the stock market course with him, a lot of it was Yamo and Temi talking to Fowles, because that's what it was in real life. Because he didn't fully understand what was happening, they did. And so he was representative of the customer, or some of the customers. Temi was at a more intermediate level because she has some experience working in finance. So if you watch it, it's the 2 of them talking to him, and that's genuine. That wasn't scripted. It was scripted to reflect reality. So sometimes you want to take it from that. You put jokes inside. Sometimes we do classes now, master classes, because we realize that sometimes education is not necessarily what you cover, it's Q&A. So we can have a master class where it will literally be 4-5 hours, and it'll be 1 hour of teaching and 4-5 hours of questioning. And we typically wait till the last person that has asked his or her last question. So it's still a critical part of what we do. We have an entire roadmap of things we want to do, including layering more educational stuff on the platform, on the app, working with actual educational institutions, traditional and neo, to be able to provide more access to educational content. I think the important thing for us is we want it in a way that it resonates with people, that people genuinely understand what we're saying. It's no good if I come and say, the EPS of the XYZ is the ABC. How is this material? How does this affect me? How does MTN increasing the price of data that I buy affects the performance of the company? These are one of the stock market is real companies making real decisions that affect real customers. And so you want to understand that, because even if you don't invest in a company, you might work for a publicly traded company. But a publicly traded company, a private company, they're all businesses. They all think the same way.
In 2024, Bamo launched Misan. At first, it looks like a pivot, but really it wasn't. It's just the same mission expanded. As more Africans are beginning to move abroad, they realize that investing and remitting are just 2 sides of the same coin. And so Misan was built to make moving money back home easier, faster, and cheaper. Wealth is not about one transaction. It's a system. It's how you help people back home to make money, to save money, to be able to buy things, to be able to invest. And that's what Misan exists for.
We started Misan because from day one we've been doing remittance. Like I mentioned before, we've been doing remittance at Bamboo since the beginning of our foray into investment. And Misan started as a need to really begin to focus on our users in diaspora and helping them solve the problems that existed for them investing back home. Moving money has to be cheap if you want to have that money end up in an investment product back home in Africa. And for us, building Misan was responding to that need for our users that are now investing back home and solving the problems that existed for them to really start investing back home.
So coins didn't work. Coins was a hassle for regulatory settlement reasons. It sounded like crypto. And so just trying to settle made it long. It kept getting flagged and it was annoying. And it was messing up the user experience, very, very difficult operationally. And we also realized post-launch that we wanted to like change the brand a bit, like the feel and look and the personality of the brand. So changing the name gave us the opportunity to rebrand as well. And why Misan? The team picked a bunch of names. The team liked it, and it was interesting and it was different. And you're here asking us why Misan, so it's catchy at least.
But why are we doing remittance? I think it's an adjacent opportunity from where we stand. Really thinking about it. So we provide opportunities today for Nigerians to be able to access like global investment opportunities. But we also understand that in the last few years, there's been lots of migration out of Nigeria to places like the UK and Canada and the likes. And what typically happens is that when these Nigerians migrate, there's an improvement in their earning power. So they have a bit more money, and understanding how we are as a people, just the behavior of us as a people, is very hard to completely disconnect from home, even when you are away. So there's the need to always want to like send stuff back, all of that. So we thought that opportunity was going to continue to expand with the pattern of migration that we're seeing, and so wanted to be positioned for it. But also is how we think that the two platforms could be able to interoperate. So we do think that eventually, because when you look around and then you go to the UK, for example, or Canada, a lot of the investment options that you would have, let's say for fixed income products, will probably give you maybe an average of a 4% per annum. That's what you get, either on the pound, GBP, or like Canadian dollar or whatever stuff. But we have an asset class today locally where we give people 7.5% on the dollar.
You're not wrong to say that it's a saturated space, right? But what we see is an opportunity for us to offer services the way we know how to do, the Bamboo way. The Bamboo way has always been one that is fair to users. It has always been one that like puts the users front and center, right? So our major, or one of the things that we think we are doing differently with Misan is our pricing. Our pricing is a whole lot fairer than lots of other competitors. We are not looking to make all of the monies on one transactions. We really want to help people move monies across jurisdictions in a way that the money gets to them seamlessly, gets to the recipient seamlessly, and also in a way that doesn't like really put a hole in your pocket in terms of like fees and also in terms of like exchange rates.
At the end of the day, Bamboo is about the people, the shareholders, the employees, but also very importantly, its users. And some of the users are making their first investment. There was someone who bought a fraction of Tesla stock and said, I own something that's going to be great in the future. The other people who are finally seeing returns that beat inflation. All of these users are proving the same point, that access changes lives. And Bamboo's real impact won't be measured in the dollars it raised, but in the wealth that is created by its users.
Hi, I'm Damilola, a data engineer and Bamboo user, I guess. To be honest, I can't remember. I don't know if it's from friends or saw it on Twitter or IG. I know I saw it somewhere and I liked the colors and what it was about, wealth creation, and geez, I'm trying to be rich.
My name is Munira Tojotu and I work as a business analyst. Okay, so it was in 2019. I think, if I remember correctly, that was when Bamboo started. I just had a conversation with someone I had met about investing. But at the time, it was about investing in stocks in Nigeria, and you know that that's more of like a volume game. So nevertheless, it was interesting to me because everyone that knows me knows that I like money unapologetically. And it was interesting to know that there's a way that I could build wealth, no matter how small. So at the time, I was still trying to wrap my head around investing in Nigerian stocks, and then there came Bamboo in the same year, 2019. So when it came, it's new, allows you to buy fractional shares, and you can invest as little as you could. So I spoke to a couple of friends about it. After downloading the app, of course. I spoke to a couple of friends about it. Bamboo had webinars also at the time, so I was always in all of those webinars where they were explaining your funds are insured. Well, Nigerians, we like to feel safe. Your funds are insured. Who's insuring your funds and to what amount, right? So all of those questions were answered in webinars during when it was just launched. So yeah, that's when I started.
I think my first investment was in Tesla. And it was just because I read about it, saw how it was moving, and I tried going into it. Well, I don't think I stayed long enough to, to reap the benefits of it. I pulled it out quickly, and I took a haircut on that. But then I got better at it and started making other investments, which have done pretty well.
Making my first investment in Bamboo, the feeling, it was fascinating, right? Because it was Tesla, and then Bamboo helps you get a fraction of Tesla stocks. Everybody wants to be a part of the winning team. Yeah, so it was fascinating to know that no matter how small, I own something that is going to be great in the future, and then I have the opportunity to build wealth. Like I said, I like money a lot, and financial freedom fascinates me. So anything that takes me closer.
I'd say Bamboo has affected my relationship with money in general, because previously I'd get money and I'll just save it and go about my day. But now, I have this urge to invest every single cash I get once I save, and almost like I'm always looking out for the next investment opportunity to put idle cash in to grow it up.
I've used Misan.
Yeah. What's that?
I mean, it was just once that I tried it because the number of virtual dollar cards out there, right? Do they all fit your needs? Not exactly. So when Misan was launched, I mean, that's about the only feature that I know of, that I know a lot of, the virtual dollar card feature. So I tried paying for a subscription recently and I had to use that. Other than that, I'm looking to explore it more. There's something I've always wanted Bamboo to add, but I think that for some regulatory constraints, they might not be able to, right? So you know how if your cash goes in Naira, it has to come out in Naira. There's no, you can't put cash in Naira and then get it in dollars. I know that there are some regulations regarding these things, so if that was possible, I think I would like it, but regardless, I think it was still good. You get the current value of your money anyways.
Well, I'd say Bamboo could add a number of things to make the experience better. The first would be more liquid investments, because currently I still have to look for how to get liquid investments like money market funds, equity income funds, and the likes that I could earn my interest or returns and also take it out when I need to without having to wait to sell or take a haircut when I want to take my money. So I would appreciate if we could have all of that and bonds and other investment opportunities that are beyond stocks.
The future never arrives anywhere at the same time. Some people get it first, and Bamboo is working to change that. Their vision is bold. And Africa, where building wealth is accessible, systematic, and generational. 4 years ago, ownership felt out of reach. Today, Bamboo's vision is to make sure that the next generation doesn't just save, but that they own. Because in a world that is defined by ownership, Africans must own their share of what comes next.
When I see Bamboo leading investments in Africa. So not just in Nigeria, Ghana, across Africa. And even maybe beyond. But I think what is at the core of Bamboo is Bamboo will somehow, it could even add more business lines and try and solve other existing problems. So I think Bamboo is one of those companies that's going to be here for a long time because we're dynamic. We move with the times. We're not complacent. And I know that in 5 years, whatever we're doing, we're going to be killing it wherever we are.
I see Bamboo being the number one company in investments in Africa, and also maybe challenging the big ones, the Robin Hoods. Yeah.
My dream for Bamboo in the next 5 to 10 years would be I think most importantly, to have truly changed more and more people's lives. And I don't mean that in just marketing. I think at the end of the day, businesses exist to serve a purpose. One of those purposes is for the business to make money. But I think the easiest way to do that is if you actually change people positively. I look at myself as someone, even though I work here, who's benefited from it, because there's just so much about how money behaves I didn't know before I started working here. And I feel like that knowledge is quite unfortunately lost on the African continent, and we don't really realize how much it affects us. One of the things that bothers me about Nigeria in particular is there's a major lack of big businesses that transcend one generation of ownership.
I think for us, if everything goes perfectly, then it means we've done it. We have fulfilled our overall goal, our overall mission, which is helping people invest so they can live the lives of their dreams, helping Africans everywhere invest and grow their wealth. So that means Africans in Africa, Africans everywhere, they're actually able to invest. They're able to invest safely. They're able to invest securely. So we build those rails that allow this happen very, very, very seamlessly. And for us, that's amazing because it means that people are actually able to grow their wealth. Democratizing investments has been important to us. So even till now, we've made it so that the minimums are very, very low and you can get started investing. And if we're able to scale that across the continent, that will do amazing things for wealth creation and, for economies globally, because we've even seen, even on Bamboo, when people invest, most of the withdrawals are coming back home. People are investing here, they're using the money in this economy, they're growing the economies. And a richer population is always a good thing. It's always amazing, in somewhere like the NGX, if we're actually able to continue to grow and deepen the market, then that's amazing for Nigeria, if the capital markets are deepened and growing. So just really hoping to do what we set out to do and help grow these economies and help Africans become rich.
If you think about a team that would have made it possible for every African to be able to live their dreams through investing, to be able to reach for their dreams, and make that possible for Africans in general, an African household, over the next 5 years, Bamboo would be that team. And our goal is that every African, no matter where you are on the continent, from Lagos to Nairobi, from Accra to Cape Town, you can really, really reach for your dreams and make those dreams come true through investing. And Bamboo wants to be that trusted financial partner that makes that possible for every African.
If you spent all your time watching this and you're a Bamboo user already, thank you very much. If you're not yet a Bamboo user, this is a personal invitation from Yamo to you to download the Bamboo app and get investing today. You can invest in the US stock market, the Nigerian stock market, USD fixed income, and Nigerian treasury bills and Naira savings. So there's really no excuse. If you use money and you want to grow your money, then you should be using Bamboo. Can't wait to serve you. Thank you.
There's also Invest Bamboo, another Nigerian company started by two 26-year-old Nigerians. They offer new ways for you to save money and to invest in stocks just from a single application.